Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this Lunch and Learn session. A nice short one for you to watch while you're munching your lunch. But just to give you a bit of an overview of the case study that we need producing for the People Matter Charter. So welcome to everybody who's attending this session, and thank you for coming. It's a hello from me. Some of you, or hopefully most of you do know me, but my name's Helen Carter. I've been the lead on the People Matter Charter, so I'm going to be your sort of presenter for the next 45 minutes to give you a bit of an overview of what the session is. So hopefully you can all see me and you can all hear me okay. But as normal, this will be recorded, so you can go back to this if you need to. Some virtual housekeeping as the way these things tend to run. If you've got any technical difficulties, we have our lovely Sophie looking after you, and she will help you with anything that she can hear at this present moment in time. So put some details into the chat and she will help you with any technical difficulties you've got. Although I am going to talk at you for about half an hour, 40 minutes, I am also going to give you an opportunity to put questions and answers in. So as is normal, put them in the chat box and I'll respond to them either throughout the session or alternatively towards the end. We will be recording this, so you can use it and refer back if you need to. And there's a couple of polls, so feel free to join in. They do make things a little bit more interactive and give me an idea of who I'm talking to, because these are very strange sessions when you feel like you're talking to yourself. So what's the purpose of this session? Well, we're going to go through the People Matter Charter and how we're doing. So some really good news stories. So some of you hopefully are signatories and are here to understand what you need to do to get your case study written. Some may be thinking about signing and want to know what this case study is all about. So that gives you a bit of an overview. We're also looking at some development work at the moment in the Labour group. So I'm going to give you a quick update on the next stage for the Charter, because can you believe it? We're coming up to a year since we launched it. It was nearly a year ago that we were in Birmingham doing our big launch event. So what's the next stage and how is this carrying on delivering? Excuse me. I'll then go through what we need from the case study and how it fits into the sort of evidence that we're looking for in terms of implementation around the Charter. And then just to sort of finish off, we'll give you some idea of some future events that all contribute towards the commitments that you've signed up for as part of the Charter or are thinking of signing up to. And then we'll have a question and answer session at the end, hopefully while you're not finishing munching your lunch. So why are we here? What is this People Matter Charter? So some of you should know about this if you are signatories, but I'll give you a bit of an overview of the Charter. And just so I know how many people are on here, what we're going to do is a quick poll. So Sophie, if you can go over to the poll, that would be great. Have an option to vote. And then we'll see how many of you know about this Charter. Okay, how are we doing? Hopefully you've all voted. Thank you. Only half, a little bit more than half of you. That's good. Okay, so some of you are on this call and haven't heard of the Charter. Some of you have heard of it. Some of you have heard of it, but you've been to some events. And 15 of you are here to understand what you need to do for your Charter. So for those of you who are here to hear about the case study, bear with us. I'm just going to give the other guys a bit of an update on where we are around the Charter. So hopefully you're going to get a bit more information on that one. Okay, brilliant. Thanks, Sophie. So the Charter. The Charter is a document, is a series of commitments that has been established since January this year. It is designed to try and provide a cohesive approach to how we deal with people issues in our industry. It's sort of born, if you like, out of the concept of we need to address things like modern slavery and exploitation. But a way to do that is not just to implement really good due diligence systems, but also to make an industry a nicer industry to work with, something that we can actually do to take interest in the people that we're working with and also address some of the other issues that we have coming our way in terms of shortages in workforce and skills. dealing with issues around the mental health and well-being, dealing with issues around discrimination, all of which have places on what we call the exploitation spectrum, things that we need to be addressing to make sure that people are being given fair wage, fair commencement in their workforce, and just basically is an industry that people want to come and work in. So the commitments were created after about 18 months worth of hard work from the Labour group. And the idea is that they are all actually intrinsically linked. So when you talk about, for example, skills and training, there is a link into how you deal with issues around equality and diversity. How are you going to encourage apprentices in from minority backgrounds or from areas where you might want to encourage more women to come in? How do we encourage the next generation to come in and work for our industry when actually in some instances they're not really paid very well? So are we ensuring that they're being paid fairly? And then how are we dealing with things like fairness, inclusion and respect? So they all contribute to each other. And we did find that when we were launching the charter in January, no matter how many times we started to talk about one issue, we found ourselves venturing into other issues that were connected in the people space. So the idea is that this provides what we call an umbrella strategy, a people strategy that organizations can pick up. And what we found is that some organizations are already doing a lot of the stuff, which is great news. But what we want is this standard to be implemented all the way down the supply chain. And this is where we want it to get into the tier 2s and the tier 3s, get into the SME communities. And it is designed not just for the big boys and girls, it's not just for the clients, but actually for the smaller organizations who also need to think about how they address these issues. So it has been designed specifically for that. So there are 8 areas that are broken into 2 things. One is called an intent and the other is called a requirement. The intents are ones where you may be doing something, you may have just started the journey, but you intend to progress to a certain level. And we have a roadmap, which we'll talk about a little bit later on in the development side of things. You will find that when you undertake your assessment against the roadmap, thinking about where you are, you might be at the very, very beginning. So in the living wage one, for example, which tends to be a bit of a contentious one, the very, very beginning level of that is about ensuring you're legally compliant, that you're paying minimum wage, that you're paying living wage where it needs to be. It is not a requirement that you suddenly go off and become a living wage foundation employer. That's the sort of pinnacle of where we would like organizations to get to, but not everyone will get there. So the intents are about where you start to go on that journey. And in some of them, for example, around commitment 5, if you're not providing materials, if you don't have international supply chains, that's not really relevant to you. So you have an option to sort of adjust and think about what's relevant to your business. So the first one is around equality, diversity and inclusion. And that would be around ensuring that you are not just complying with the Equality and Diversity Act, but also then pushing it further into, investment in things like FIR, investments in the ambassadors, and then actually starting to drive that into your supply chain as well. So we want to see that progression in terms of doing it yourself, but also then starting to think about how you engage with your suppliers to actually start to make the influence on better practices. Skills and training is around understanding what you're doing to employ more people, to invest in their upskilling. So this ties in quite nicely with how are you using things like your apprenticeship levy? What are you doing around succession planning? And the starting is, do you have a skills and training strategy? And again, what we're looking for here in terms of evidence, the sorts of things that we're asking for, a strategy could be a 1-page document if you're a 1-man band that says yes, or a 2-man band or 3-man band. Could be something very simple that says, yes, this is how I'm looking at skills and this is how I'm investing in upskilling my own teams or myself, through to, a client who might have thousands of employees that has a proper succession planning, the skills document, maybe 50 or 60 pages long. There is no one size fits all, but fundamentally the outcome needs to be the same. Skilled and invested workforce, and using things like the apprenticeships. And in fact, in January, we have an event where we're going to be talking about how you can keep investing in your staff, particularly in the hard times that may be coming in our industry over the next few years as we deal with the fallout of COVID. The third element is around workforce culture. And this one is very much about well-being. So again, a big area at the moment for our industry to be thinking about. And historically, we've tended to go well-being equals mental health first aiders. But this is very much around how do I develop my strategy for the well-being of my workforce, and that might be physical and social as well as mental. So thinking about all the elements of how you support your staff. So there's been some brilliant case studies that we've seen over the last 6 months around, financial support when things are getting tough for some of the families out there, or there may be some, incentivization around, the sorts of PPE that's needed, and making sure that people are well protected in what are really, really uncertain times. So it's about that holistic approach to well-being, not just about the sort of mental health, but the whole combination that goes with it. The living wage, as I've already said, is about ensuring that we're paying fair and that we're paying legally. And whilst I appreciate at the top end, this probably is a little bit easier to comply with, it's more about ensuring that as we go down our supply chain, we're ensuring that everybody is entitled to fair pay for a fair day's work. So as we get into the tiers 3s, 4s and 5s, this is where we're starting to see that, even if I'm paying minimum wage at level 2, that everyone down there is at least getting minimum wage, if not more. Around those areas as well. So it is probably one of the more challenging ones, but it's very, very important, because if we're not paying our staff a fair wage, then you're enforcing vulnerability into our supply chain, which then could potentially lead to exploitation. So it's another mechanism we can use to actually deal with those issues. Number 5 of the last of the intents is around your due diligence on international context. So this is very much around a supplier side of things. So a supplier may decide that they want to sign up to this, and I'll show you in a moment. We haven't got a huge amount of suppliers yet, and that's an area that we're going to focus on. But this is about ensuring that where we're looking at things like exploitation and labour standards, that we're thinking about it from an international context as well. So you may think about your landscaping materials, your bricks, your concrete, your steel. If you're not thinking about these sorts of things now, you need to be, because things like the transparency in your supply chain requirements is pushing you to think about risk assessments and supply chain mapping. And there is an increasing awareness in this space over the last, I'd say, about 12 to 18 months. So this is about how do we deal with that? How do we deal with responsible sourcing? How do we ensure that we're getting our products from the right countries, or at least if we're going to countries where there's risks, how are we dealing with those? And before I hear some of you spit out your lunch, it's not about all going auditing lots of things. It's about how do we actually work collaboratively to be able to do this. And this is a space at the moment in the next 12 months we're going to look at in the school. The final 3 elements of the charter are around are what we call requirements. And this doesn't matter who you are in the supply chain, you should all be doing this. It's a legal requirement, but obviously our roadmap that we'll show you a little bit later on pushes you beyond legal requirements. The element on number 6 is about ensuring that you have the right to work in this country, and that is going to become even more important over the next sort of 6 months as we deal with the fallout of Brexit. So the changes that are now happening in the labour requirements and the ability to gain employment in the UK are obviously changing post-January. And our workforce is very, very, very heavily reliant on Eastern European influx. So look out for information from the GLAA. On the sorts of checks that you should be doing, the sorts of systems that you should have in place now to ensure you don't lose your workforce come January. And I'm looking to get some information from that to transfer that into the school as soon as we get some guidance from the GLAA on that one. So everybody, regardless of where you are, needs to be doing those checks. Number 7 is around modern slavery, and by that I mean your due diligence at a UK level particularly. So ensuring that you're understanding what due diligence you have to have in place to ensure there is no exploitation on your workforce sites, and that you are obviously making sure that wherever you are getting labour from, whether it's from a labour agency or as part of subcontracts, your due diligence system is in place to ensure that it is all legal and not subjected to exploitation. So that's what we're expecting to see within those areas. And then the final most contentious area, probably because it is probably the most difficult and complex, is around payments and employment standards. So we have a heavy reliance on labour that's used in our supply chain that goes down to that self-employed mechanism. That is not wrong. Self-employed is fine, but we do need to ensure that it is of a legal source, and that things like IR35 might be a consideration right now, or that individuals are getting benefits. So this one is particularly ensuring that we're making sure everybody is being paid fairly, and that that's being reflected in those payment mechanisms. So the Charter was created as a platform to allow any organisation to think about all those people issues and how you're addressing them. And as I've gone through those, some of you are probably thinking, well, we do all of that, or we do it all to a certain degree or a certain area, which is great. And if you do, then I'm challenging, and you haven't already signed up to the charter, then that's great. Have a look at it, because it is about saying, we do that, we're going to be able to evidence it. And those questions are going to be coming in more regularly. In terms of what we need people to understand as well, so again, for those of you who are on here who've signed up to the charter, this is reinforcing what you should know, hopefully, but it is voluntary. It is about making sure that some of you may have been on here and done an evaluation against a roadmap and gone, yeah, we're at level 1 and everything. That's fine. It's about your journey. You don't have to be at various levels. And one of the things that we try and make sure that partners understand is that when they start to look at organizations signing up to the charter, they are not mandating levels. And if anybody is asking for levels, come back to me, because it's about making sure that you sign up to the charter and go on the journey, but your journey is your own. We're not mandating levels at this present moment in time. I'm holding off on that for a while until we can get decent traction behind this. It's for any organization employs people. So it should be subcontractors, not just labour agencies, suppliers. If you have a person that you employ, you have a duty of care to ensure that they're looked after as well as possible, and the charter can help you do that. The signing of it is free. There is no cost to this. The partners of the school have helped develop it. They've basically paid for the development of it themselves. So it is about making sure that everybody can look at implementing this and supporting it and promoting it and driving those standards and improving the employment standards, which is fundamentally what we want. So the reason you're here is because there's 3 things that we ask every organisation to do. So for the 15 of you who are on here who've said that you are already members of the charter, thank you from the bottom of my heart. Thank you. It's great news. But there are 3 things that have been committed to. The first one is that every organisation who becomes a signatory is committed to embedding the requirements in your own organisation. As a procurement professional, I am a big advocate personally of you walk the walk as well as talk the talk. So you have to, as an organisation, be able to say we are doing this, or we're brilliant in some areas, we're not in others. Honesty is what we're looking for here, but you need to be looking at implementing this yourself in your own organisation. Then what we're looking for is that domino effect. So the idea is that we're trying to improve the standards throughout the supply chain. So start raising the conversation with your suppliers. And it doesn't have to be with all of them. Just pick some key suppliers, some people who are strategically important to you. That might be one supplier for some, it might be 50 suppliers for others. But fundamentally, we're looking to then drive the same commitment down each tier of the supply chain, which helps give us some ideas and evidence of where we're going. And at the moment, the evidence that we're looking for as a starter for 10 is the case study. So within 12 months of signing up, so I'm going to be contacting some of you, and some of you already contacted me, to look at driving this case study, and these will be published online, which I'll go through in a moment, to evidence what you've done around the charter. And it may be the charter itself, or it could be something you've done within the charter. But fundamentally, what we're looking to do is try and get some idea of the impact initially on a qualitative rather than a quantitative basis, to enable us to start to get the conversation going around how the charter has been able to help, even if it's in this really weird 10 months that we've had since the charter launched. In terms of progress, some of you may have seen this over the last few sessions that I've run recently on a variety of events. We're actually now at 69. In my inbox, I have 2 organisations I need to send certificates out to. So that's increased significantly. Increased, not significantly, but it's increased. And in fact, somebody else has contacted this morning to sign, which is brilliant. So I'm hoping that before Christmas we'll be at 70. We do have a target for 100. For those of you who are on here, please carry on spreading the word. Please carry on trying to talk to organisations. They're all doing stuff. You're all doing stuff in every area here. So what we want to do is try and give you a way to be able to evidence that. And obviously in bid writing and all those sorts of areas, things like your case study are going to be really, really useful. In terms of how we're seeing this, again, we're seeing a massive variation in terms of organisations signing up. We've got a lot of subcontractors, which is kind of interesting because when we created this, labour agencies started off doing it, and it was considered that it was just the labour agencies. But subcontractors spend money too. They work with labour agencies. They employ people themselves. So actually, it's great to see such a large area of subcontracting as well. Main contractors, we're still not quite there on the clients yet, but we are having conversations with a couple of key clients, trying to get the top of the pyramid, if you like, signed up to the same standard, which will be really good news. But we already have National Grid, we have Scape, and I'm currently trying to talk to Highways England and HS2 particularly about this, although they have got elements of it within their supply chain already. The other interesting thing is the breakdown between SMEs and non-SMEs. And a while ago, this was very much a 50-50 split. It's moved a little bit now more to the non-SME, and this is in terms of numbers of organisations. Obviously, as we start to see this penetrating the supply chain, we should see that SME picture increase significantly, because we do know that the majority of our supply chain is made up of SMEs. And the beauty I have is of a number of SMEs that have contacted me and said, Helen, it's great. I can just literally go, thank you. That's my workforce strategy, bump. I cut, paste, it gives me everything I need. So it's a good way of being able to help some of the organisations who may be resourcefully challenged to think more strategically about the way they manage their workforce, and then be able to evidence it to clients, which is where this world is going in terms of bid writing and submissions. And then in terms of partners, we have roughly about 30 odd partners, I think, signed up, maybe slightly more than that, probably up 35. And I am challenging the partners in the school to make sure that we get as many of them signed up as we can. And that's our mission in the next 12 months, is to increase our partners and our clients. And obviously what we will then see is a knock-on effect as it goes into that supply chain. But it's also nice and heartening to see that, you know, sometimes the partners are a bit slow to respond, and the members just tell them which way to go and they tell them which direction to follow. So, you know, it's nice to see that we've got a membership that's actually quite interested in this in terms of the way it's going. Okay, so one of the things that we need to do is obviously keep moving this agenda significantly. The ultimate aim is that, a little bit like the way we will deal with social value, is that we will eventually be able to measure the impact that this charter is having. And I think that's essential in terms of how we're looking to develop this going forward. But it has to be baby steps to get there. We can't suddenly tell everybody to start monitoring and measuring absolutely everything, because I don't think the industry is ready yet. What we do need to do, though, is start to make things like the roadmap a little bit easier. So the roadmap, you can go online, you can go to the website, and you can download the charter, download the roadmap, and it's an Excel spreadsheet, and it's very, very simple, lots of words that basically allow you to sort of plot yourself against each of these. And one of the things that's important to understand in the roadmap is about your organization's capability, what you can do, not about what you know. So it's slightly different in the way that the school tends to work. It's about, if I'm doing EDI, I have the policy and strategy, I am engaging my supply chain, I've got trained for ambassadors, etc., etc., etc. So the roadmap is a downloadable document. I know it's been used by some of the partners. I know it's been used by some of the signatories. So I do strongly recommend going and having a look at it, because even if you don't sign to the charter and you're trying to think about what good looks like, it's pretty much in this document for you around the sorts of things at an organizational level you need. However, one of the things that we've done is we realize that this is a very big document. You can't really see it very well on here because it's so huge and got such a lot of information. What we actually need to do is to actually start to automate it. So like everything you can do in the school, you can easily go in, you can register it, you can actually assess your organization, and then from there be able to get your evidence that you can commit to the charter. And that's what we're working on at this present moment in time. That's going to change the bar a little bit in terms of the sorts of things we need for next year's signatories. So from a signatory perspective, we're looking for every organization to renew on a 12-month basis to say they're still committing to it. We don't want it to be forgotten about. And the next stage is that once this is automated, the next commitment will not just be the case study, but to undertake this roadmap assessment online. And that will actually allow us to start understanding where the supply chain currently is. And before everybody's saying, oh, I don't want anyone to know where I am, it's all anonymous. It will still be like the school. Everything will still be anonymous. It'll be your own journey. But we're still trying to obviously understand what information we can get from that. So the idea is to take this document and review it. So to help us a little bit, I just want to get a bit of an idea from everybody on the session in terms of, have any of you used it at the moment in terms of the roadmap? So have you used it either to decide whether you're going to assess the charter, commit to it, or have you used it since you've committed to the charter to think about your steps and journeys and implementation? Okay, how are we doing? 58%. So, oh, nearly a 50-50 split. Brilliant. Okay. That's really, really good news. So the good news for those of you who have undertaken the assessment on the roadmap, hold on to that information because it will be very easily downloadable or very easy, just a tick box exercise to then just transfer that into the automated version. And then that can be renewed on a regular basis. For those of you who haven't used the roadmap, I do recommend going and having a look at the spreadsheet at this present moment in time so you can see the sort of information that's in there. But obviously from the perspective of sort of signing up and thinking about how you're going to implement the charter, that's obviously a useful tool for you to use. So when we go into the development phase, where we currently are is we're in the process of taking that roadmap, which is a very, very big, complex document, not complex, wrong word, sorry, lots and lots of words, lots of information, possibly too much information for an automated system. So what we're looking to do at the moment is reduce that down into some simplified statements for you to do, but at the same time, allowing you to have guidance on how you can position yourself against each of those. Once that's complete, which we're hoping to be done by the end of this year in December, that'll get submitted to our development team. So I put a call out to you all to have a look out for some events, probably around about March time, maybe in February if you're a current signatory, where we can get you to test the functionality and see that it all works okay. And we're going to be doing a People Matter Charter event, sort of 1 year on, give or take, sort of few months, in March, where we'll be launching that and talking about the progression and what we're doing next, and obviously giving you some up-to-date information on how all that's going. So bear that in mind. That's the next stage for development. Eventually we will be getting into being able to monitor it, but fundamentally at the moment that's the next sort of bit of teeth that we're looking to put into the system. And once you've completed that annually, you can get a little badge that will go into your functionality in the school that says you're a signatory of the People Matter Charter with the year. So you'll see that every year you've been able to recommit. That'll be generated automatically, and then you can decide, before that you'll be able to decide whether you want to commit to the charter, and we'll be able to see how everybody's performing. So that gives you a bit of background in terms of the charter, where we are, what we've been doing, what the next stages look like. But for those of you who are coming close to case study time now, because you're coming close to that 1 year, or are thinking of signing up and thinking about how much work this is, the purpose of the sort of next 10 or 15 minutes is to go through the sorts of things we're looking for in those case studies, and obviously then how you can use them internally, either within your organization, but also in things like bids if you're looking to submit evidence of the things that you're doing. So when somebody signs up to the charter, you should get from me a little pack. And in there's a range of information that you can use. You may have looked at it, you may have not. Usually most people go straight for the certificate, but you get a little certificate that has your logo on it and says that you've committed to the charter and the date, which is all great. But there's also some of the slide decks with the infographics on that you can use internally or use with your supply chain. There's a copy of the roadmap that you can use and download and have a look at. But there is also a template and question set that you can use to create the case study. So the template you'll see on the left-hand side here, it's usually just a blank document with some sections in it that allows you to think about the sorts of information that you're putting in. And what that will allow us to do is obviously then transpose it into the branding information with yourself, and obviously the school branding, and that allows us to have a bit of a standardized approach to the way that we do it. So everybody's sort of case study within reason will be relatively similar in terms of the sorts of approaches that we're taking. When you're thinking about how we get that, we also put together a range of questions and sort of guidance in the way that you could do your case study. Now, the ideal case study for us at the moment is something that talks about, why did you decide to become a signatory? What did you do with it? How has it made your life different, if it has at all? Some organizations may or may not be honest and say, well, I've signed up to it and done absolutely nothing with it, and that's perfectly fine. Other organizations may have done things in terms of embedding the requirements in procurement, for example, or started to do some internal engagement, or thought about a learning pathway in lines. All your journeys will be very, very different, and the case study should reflect that. But what we've actually provided within this template for you is some simple questions that you can either ask yourself, or you can actually ask some key stakeholders in your organization. So Simple things like, why did you become a signatory? And then obviously this template will evolve over time or continue to go. So if you've remained a signatory more than 12 months, then it's useful to say, why did you keep committing? Why are you still with us? What difference is it making to your organization? What's also really powerful and will help us a lot in terms of trying to encourage other organizations is, I'm a big honest believer that when you write a case study, you should write the difficult stuff as well as the easy stuff. So what were the challenges? And I don't know if we've got some people on here who signed it, but I do know some people who signed it had to go through quite a lot of pain to get that commitment from their board, that they would be able to commit to this. I know in other organizations have asked me in the morning what they can do, and by the afternoon they're done. So the challenges are all different. Again, it's a really good idea to try and get an overview of what you've experienced in trying to get that commitment, because this isn't a promotion thing in terms of PR. We're really, really keen that the charter is seen as something that's got some substance behind it. Then thinking about, well, okay, once I've had the charter, who's managing it? So you may find that when you've actually been looking at your charter, I've had some people come back to me and say, I've got 5 people managing this. We're doing it collectively, because it does impact our HR. It impacts our procurement. It impacts our site teams. So actually thinking about who the key stakeholders are and encouraging those guys as well. Have any of you got targets or policies now relating to the charter? So has it been embedded into any of your procurement policies, for example, or have you got any targets on the number of strategic suppliers you've got signed up to? It's still really, really early days, and I'm not expecting that I've got a nice comprehensive range in here. It may be that we've signed up to it and actually we're doing some internal engagement at the moment. That could be as simple as you want it. However, one of the other things to think about is that in a lot of the instances of what the charter is looking for, you've been doing a lot of work regardless of signing the charter. So once you've got the charter, actually putting in the information around how you've signed up to it, why you've signed up to it, and then maybe some of the things that you've done that contribute to the charter's commitments. So have you undertaken lots of training on, and have you got lots of fur ambassadors, for example? Have you been engaging your supply chain on issues like modern slavery and encouraging them to come and do some due diligence training workshops? So think about not just the charter itself and the challenges you've had and the reasons you signed up to it, but actually what you've done against those commitments, and encourage, put that within the case study as well. There are elements around, have you promoted it? Always useful to know whether some organizations I know have come up to me and said, Helen, we've now done this. It goes into all our training materials. We talk about it constantly. And obviously we're starting to see organizations sign up because of that. So it gives you a framework within this template of the different types of things that you can do within the case study, the different nuances. The key here is it's about what's relevant to your business. So don't worry in terms of you're not in competition with any of the signatories. This is about what it means to you, why it's important to you, and what you've done. And some businesses are going to be further up the journey than others. And in the first year, I'm not expecting a huge number of people saying they've done a huge amount, because we've had very challenging years, a very challenging year. But at the same time, there's going to be some bits you can put in to evidence why you've signed it and why you're continuing to sign it. And that's really what we want the case study to do, is get people to think about the impact it's potentially have. So once you've undertaken that, and it's as simple as you take the template, you maybe do your interviews, you can look at your response in the template that you've got. Some of you may have marketing departments that will need to ratify it, or a comms department, some of you won't. But once you've completed that sort of wording, and if you want to throw any of them towards myself and to Robin in the supply chain school to have a quick look at and give you advice, we're more than happy to do that. But draft that response, and don't forget pictures, information that obviously brings a bit of richness to this. Obviously quantitative is really nice if you've got some quantitative data, but actually this is a story that we're looking for this case study to tell. When you submit that and you're comfortable that this is your finished case study, if you can also confirm to us as well that you are happy to share it with social media. And what we're going to be looking at doing over the next sort of 12 months is starting to put together a regular People Matter Charter newsletter. I'm going to have to find a way to abbreviate that. I would love to be able to put some of the case studies in. So again, provide that information if you can. We are putting a dedicated section on the People Matter Charter page. So once that case study is done, again, it will go against your logo, it will go within the charter. So we'll start to gather the data and the evidence of how the charter has been able to do or been able to have some impact in terms of this industry, and fundamentally promote it. it's a little bit, it is work. I appreciate that. For some of you, it's going to be a lot of work. For others, it's going to be quite straightforward. But again, it's about the messaging, getting the information out there and making sure that everybody understands what it is you're doing and why. So in terms of the case study itself, it is relatively simple to do. There is no fix, I need it to be X, Y, and Z around the sort of content. It's your narrative, it's your story on how you've implemented the charter over time. If you can't find your packs where I gave you the case study templates and I gave you the information available in it, please email me and I can send you a revised version or a new up-to-date version. But fundamentally, we've got all the information you need to be able to do that. It's within your time, within your journey. We will be sending some reminder emails out over the next sort of month or so to new signatories who signed in the sort of January time. But if you've signed over the last sort of 6 months and think, I've got a case study now I can present, it doesn't have to be exactly 12 months after you signed. It could be straight away. If you've got something to shout now, if you want to be able to. It's totally fine. I think the wording is within 12 months, so it's you've got the option to be able to do it earlier. If there are any questions around how we use that data over and above what I've said to you, again, please let me know, and we're more than happy to share that. So to sort of wrap up, one of the things that we've been trying to do throughout the year, and again, for those of you who are signatories to the charter, keep your eyes out if you're not already, is to make sure that we're always keeping you up to date with future events. And we've got a number of future events at the moment that we're going to be sending out to everybody. So look out for them in your comms that are coming from the marketing department. We've got more modern slavery events that we're running, but I'm constantly running them. So please feel free to keep dipping into them. We have the intro. We'll have some more due diligence ones. We've got some, we can happily run some more site teams. So have a look at them and make sure you keep aware of them. FIR has got its own significant campaign as well. So make sure that you're dialing into some of the FIR ones. So there's the business case for fairness, inclusion and respect. There's being a good ally in the workplace, being a FIR ambassador. And in January, we do have an event where we are going to be having CITB, Flannery, number of organisations who are going to be talking about how you've managed to keep skills and training investment going during the current period within COVID, but also obviously within the landscape of the next 12 to 18 months, maybe 2 years, depending on what we think this economy is going to end up looking like. So, excuse me. It is designed to be a very quick whistle-stop tour around the case study, but hopefully I always know that people appreciate having a little bit of time back rather than necessarily doing one of the events I ran last week, which went 20 minutes over for my first time ever. I hope that you've managed to get something useful from the case studies. For those of you in there who've asked for my details around signing up, please contact me. More than happy to talk through anybody if they need some more information as well. My details will be at the end in terms of my email, but I think Sophie's also done that. She's also prompted you to sign up for any potential events as well. As you can see, there's a feedback button at the top, so please obviously feedback in terms of how useful this has been. Any questions from anybody in terms of either the charter or what's contained within the case study and what we need from you? Not seeing anything at the moment. Email address. Thank you, Sophie. You responded to that one. No, all quiet at the moment. Okay. Oh, no, hold on. One question. Word limit for the case study. Hi, Hannah. No, there isn't a word. There isn't a word limit. It's use as many or as few words as you want. I mean, try and keep it to 1 or 2 pages if you can. But at the same time, I'm more worried about the narrative to make sure that you get all the detail in there. So usually a good case study is about a page to 2 pages. I mean, if you're writing a blog, for example, you're usually going around about 500 words. But let's have a look at it. If you want some feedback in terms of how to be able to edit it and change it, just send it through to us, Hannah, and we'll have a look and come back to you. If there are no, hold on, there's 2 more questions. If you've got some questions, okay, you've got some questions about the roadmap and some expert help, who can you contact? Drop me an email. We help develop the roadmap. In fact, we developed the roadmap with a team. So drop me an email and we can obviously help talk you through it. And one of the things I might think about doing actually a little bit into the year is a roadmap session where we can go through embedding this. So we ran an event last year, about 2 months ago, called Embedding the People Matter Charter into your workforce strategy, into your employment strategy, where we actually went through the roadmap in a lot of detail. So I will look at running that again in the new year. So Caroline, keep your eyes out for that one, because that really does go through the roadmap and the sorts of things we'd expect to see. So hopefully that will that will help. And Andy, don't worry, I'm aware that some people won't have concentrated necessarily on the People Matter Charter, but I do also appreciate you've actually probably done a lot of stuff already, because it's been a very trying year around people. So as I reiterate, if you're writing your case study, if it doesn't say we've done lots of promotion work on People Matter Charter, I'm not going to be upset. That's the reality of the life. But you are probably doing a lot at the moment on well-being. You'll be doing a lot on making sure people are being paid. You'll be doing a lot at the moment on fairness, inclusion and respect. So make sure you're capturing that, because it's making sure that it's capturing that evidence is probably really important, because you're doing a lot more than you're probably giving yourself credit. And yeah, Heather, I think that I agree. It's actually amazing to see how much you will have done and COVID will have forced you to do. So okay, so I think from my perspective, make sure that you share your feedback. And today is officially the 1st of December, so I get to say thank you. And I'm not going to say happy Christmas, because I think I have some more events going. So if I don't see you before, have a lovely Christmas. Enjoy your mince pies and your advent calendars. If I do see you before, then I'll say that again when I see you next. Any questions around the People Matter Charter, please feel free to contact me. My contact details are at the end. But look at the website, have a look at the pages. As you can probably tell, I could happily talk about that for absolutely ages. So, more than happy for you to share the words. Presentation, Lauren, yes, it will come out. We will be sending a link to the presentation along with the feedback form. So, Lauren, you'll get that from us, not a problem at all. In the meantime, enjoy the rest of your afternoon, enjoy the rest of your lunch, and catch up with you all soon. Thanks, everybody.